The dust storm hit like God's own fury that afternoon in the panhandle of Texas, swallowing our ramshackle farm in a choking brown haze that turned day to night in seconds. I remember the way Ethan grabbed my hand, his grip iron-tight against the howling wind, pulling me into the storm cellar where the world above screamed its rage. "You're my wife now, Javier," he whispered fiercely into the darkness, his breath hot against my ear as thunder rattled the earth like Judgment Day, sealing a vow no preacher or lawman could ever touch. Down there in the suffocating black, with the air thick as grief and our hearts pounding in sync, we clung to each other like sinners seeking absolution. It was 1932, the height of the Dust Bowl's merciless grip on the high plains, and we'd lost everything. The crops withered to ash, the cattle starved skeletons, my family's old adobe house half buried in drifts of topsoil that flew like vengeful spirits. Ethan had ridden in on a borrowed mule 6 months earlier, a drifter from the Oklahoma border with nothing but a battered guitar and eyes that held the weight of too many empty promises. He was 28 to my 25, built like the land itself, broad-shouldered, sun-scorched, with that sandy hair perpetually dusted like he'd been kissed by the same devil winds that stripped us bare. I was Javier Ruiz, son of migrant workers who'd chased the promise of black gold only to find fool's dirt in Wheeler County. My father had died coughing up lungfuls of silt the year before, leaving me to scratch a living from soil that hated us back. Folks in town whispered about men like us. Queers, they spat, as if the word could summon lightning to strike us down. But Ethan didn't whisper. He claimed me with a fire that burned brighter than any oil well flare, calling me wife, not in mockery, but in a raw, defiant tenderness that made my chest ache with something fiercer than fear. That night in the cellar, as the storm raged on, he traced the lines of my face with calloused fingers, his voice a low rumble over the din. "I ain't got a ring or a Bible, but you're mine, Javier. Through this hell, and whatever comes after." His lips found mine then, rough and urgent, tasting of salt and desperation. And in that kiss, we forged a world of our own, a secret sanctuary amid the ruin. When the wind finally whimpered to a hush at dawn, we emerged to a landscape remade in desolation. Barbed wire fences sagging like broken spines, the horizon a smudged watercolor of grief. But we had each other, and in those early days it was enough. We rebuilt as best we could, piecing together a life from the scraps the drought left behind. Ethan took odd jobs at the dwindling ranches, mending fences and breaking horses that were more bone than spirit, while I tended what remained of our vegetable patch, coaxing tomatoes from cracked earth with prayers in Spanish my mother had taught me. Evenings, we'd sit on the sagging porch of the half-repaired house, his arms slung possessively around my shoulders as the sun bled orange into the flats. He'd strum that guitar, singing ballads of lost loves and wide-open roads, his voice gravelly and true, pulling stories from the strings that mirrored our own hidden tale. One twilight, as cicadas hummed their dirge, he pulled me close and murmured, "Wife, you ever think about leaving this godforsaken dust?" His blue eyes searched mine, vulnerable in a way that twisted my gut. I shook my head, leaning into the solid warmth of him. "Wherever you go, Ethan, that's home." It was the truth, bone deep and unyielding. In a world that branded us outcasts, our love was the only gospel we needed. Fierce, unspoken in public, but electric in the stolen moments when the ranch hands had ridden out and the stars wheeled overhead like indifferent witnesses. Yet the land conspired against us. Another storm season brought locusts that devoured the last of our hopes, and whispers from Amarillo reached us. Relief trucks rumored to carry more than food, carrying eyes that judged and tongues that wagged. We heard of a neighbor, old Mr. Harlan, caught with a farmhand in the barn, dragged to the sheriff's by pitchfork-wielding kin, and left swinging from an oak by dawn. Ethan's jaw tightened when I told him, his hand clenching mine until it hurt. "They touch you, Javier, and I'll bury him in this dirt myself." His protectiveness was a shield, but couldn't hold back the creeping fear that gnawed at my dreams. We adapted, as survivors do. Ethan started prospecting on the side, borrowing a geologist's map from a barfly in Pampa who owed him a favor. "Black gold's out there," he'd say, eyes alight with a dreamer's fire as we pored over the faded paper by lantern light. I'd laugh softly, tracing the veins of potential strikes with my finger. "And if you find it, mi amor, you'll buy me a proper ring?" He'd grin, that crooked smile that melted my resolve, and pull me onto his lap. "Better, a house with walls that don't leak, and a bed big enough for my wife to stretch out in." Our nights blurred into a rhythm of passion and planning, his body moving over mine with a hunger that spoke of futures we dared not voice aloud. But fortune, that fickle coyote, had other plans. It was a sweltering July morning when Ethan's pick struck true, not in the mapped fields, but in a dry creek bed behind our barn, where the earth parted like a reluctant lover to reveal a seep of crude, bubbling black. He came running, covered in muck, eyes wild with disbelief. Javier, it's real. It's goddamn real. We sank to our knees together, hands dipping into the viscous promise, and for the first time in years, laughter bubbled up unbidden, mingling with tears. Word spread like wildfire through the county. Within weeks, surveyors swarmed our patch of nowhere, stakes driven deep as Ethan's lease sold for a sum that made my head spin. $50,000, enough to lift us from the abyss. The oil company men arrived in shiny Fords, contracts thick as Bibles. And just like that, Ethan Hale transformed from drifter to landowner. We moved to a modest bungalow on the edge of Canadian Texas, with actual glass windows and an icebox that hummed like a lullaby. He bought me that ring. A simple gold band engraved with W on the inside, slipped onto my finger in the quiet of our new bedroom, his voice thick. Now, it's official, wife. Forever. The early months were a dream woven from silk and sunlight. Mornings, I'd wake to the scent of coffee brewing on the new gas stove, Ethan whistling as he fried eggs, his prosperity softening the hard edges of his face. We'd drive into town in his spanking new Chevrolet, windows down to let the wind tousle our hair, his hands stealing glances at my knee when no one watched. Prosperity brought freedoms we'd only whispered about. Books from the library on subjects forbidden back home, records of jazz, singers crooning tales of heartache that echoed our own. At night, under sheets that smelled of fresh laundry instead of dust, he'd hold me close, his whispers laced with gratitude. This is for us, Javier. All of it. But money has a way of carving canyons in the soul. Ethan changed slowly at first, like a river eroding stone. The oil checks grew fatter, pulling him into meetings with roughnecks and bankers in Amarillo, nights away that stretched into dawns. He'd return smelling of whiskey and cigar smoke, eyes distant as he shrugged off my touch. Business, darlin'. Can't build an empire sitting on my ass. The endearments dried up, wife becoming a jest tossed out in company. Met with guffaws from men who slapped his back and called him the luckiest son of a bitch in the panhandle. I saw it in the mirror of his gaze, the way he pulled back when I reached for him, claiming fatigue from the day's dealings. Our bungalow, once a haven, echoed with silences broken only by the tick of the mantel clock. He'd bring home suits tailored in Dallas, starched collars that choked the boy I'd loved, and invite associates for poker nights where the air thickened with cigar haze and sidelong glances that made my skin crawl. One evening, as I cleared plates stained with steak juices we could now afford, I overheard him laughing with a drilling foreman named Buck, voice slurred. Hell, Javier here's my right-hand man. Keeps the home fires burning. The room erupted, but his eyes met mine across the table, cold as creek ice, and something inside me fractured. Desperation clawed at me in the quiet hours. I'd wander the property line, now fenced in chain link instead of barbed wire, staring at the derrick that pumped our fortune ceaselessly, its nod like a mechanical heartbeat mocking our fading pulse. Letters from my sister in Lubbock urged me to leave. He's not the man who dug you out of that cellar, Hamano, but pride chained me tighter than fear. Ethan noticed my withdrawal, cornering me one afternoon in the garage amid cans of motor oil. What's eating you, Javier? We got all now. His hand on my arm felt like obligation, not fire. I pulled away, voice steady despite the storm inside. You used to call me wife like it meant salvation. Now it's a punchline for your drinking buddies. His face hardened, jaw ticking. Times change. World's watching us now. Can't go acting like fools in the dirt anymore. The words landed like blows, stripping bare the truth we'd both ignored. Success demanded a mask, and his fit him better than mine. The fracture widened that fall when the company hosted a gala in Amarillo to celebrate the field's gusher. Ethan insisted I come, dressing me in a suit that hung awkward on my frame, his own tuxedo gleaming like polished obsidian. The ballroom swirled with oil barons and their wives, real wives in pearls and silks, casting curious eyes our way. He introduced me as my partner in the business, the words slicing deeper than any slur, and spent the night schmoozing, his laughter booming while I nursed a watered whiskey in the shadows. A woman approached then, elegant in emerald satin, her husband a vice president with a handshake like wet fish. You must be thrilled for Ethan, she cooed. eyes appraising. Such a catch. He's going places. I nodded, throat tight, but she leaned in, voice honeyed venom. Darling, if you ever tire of playing valet, there's a spot in my circle for a man with your charm. The implication hung, a noose of societal niceties, and when Ethan finally collected me at midnight, reeking of bourbon, I confronted him in the car. Is that what I am now? Your valet? Your cover? He gripped the wheel, knuckles white. Don't start, Javier. This is our ticket out. Respect security. You want to go back to storm cellars. Rage boiled over, words I'd bottled for months spilling free. I want the man who vowed forever in the dark, not this stranger chasing ghosts of approval. The drive home blurred in silence. The Chevrolets roared a dirge for what we lost. Winter clamped down hard that year, frost etching the windows like accusations. Ethan's empire expanded. Leases in Hemphill County, a stake in a refinery near Wichita Falls. But our bed grew vast and cold, his touches perfunctory, excuses piling like snowdrifts. I'd lie awake, tracing the ring on my finger, its gold now tarnished as our promises. Whispers from town folk reached me through the grocer's wife. Hale's got a lady friend in the city, they say, proper one, with a dowry. Jealousy twisted like barbed wire, but worse was the pity in her eyes, as if I'd always been the fool in this farce. One blizzard night, as winds howled like the ghosts of our past, Ethan stumbled home late, cheeks flushed not from cold but from hidden flasks. He collapsed onto the sofa, eyes glassy, and in a rare crack of vulnerability, pulled me down beside him. Javier, I miss it. Us. But the world a meat grinder. One slip, and they chew you up. His head lolled against my shoulder, breath ragged. You're still my wife, deep down. Always. The words ignited a spark, and for a moment, we melted into each other, bodies remembering the fire. But dawn brought sobriety and distance, his tenderness evaporating like mist. The breaking point came in spring, when the wildflowers dared bloom amid the scars. Ethan announced a trip to Houston for negotiations, packing a valise with more care than he'd shown me in months. 2 weeks tops, he said, avoiding my gaze. But on the third night, a telegram arrived from a mutual acquaintance. Saw Ethan at the Rice Hotel bar with a debutante on his arm. Thought you should know. The paper trembled in my hand, the words blurring through tears I'd sworn not to shed. Rage propelled me forward. I wired money for a train ticket, boarding the Santa Fe Chief bound for Houston under a sky bruised with thunderheads. The city assaulted me, skyscrapers piercing the humid air, streets teeming with lives unscarred by dust, a far cry from our planes. I found him at the hotel lounge, ensconced in a booth with her, Lydia Beaumont, heiress to a shipping fortune, her laughter tinkling like crystal as his hand rested possessively on hers. He looked up, face paling to ash. Javier? What the hell? I stood frozen, the room spinning. Your wife came to collect her due. The word echoed, drawing stares, but I didn't care. Lydia's eyes widened in confusion, then disdain. Wife? Ethan, darling, explain. He rose, sputtering. It's a joke from the old days. Business partner, that's all. The lie landed like a slap, and something primal snapped. Business? Is that what you call the vows we swore in the dark? The life we built from nothing? Security loomed, but Ethan waved them off, dragging me to the lobby, his grip bruising. Have you lost your mind? This could ruin everything. I wrenched free, voice a whip. Ruin? You've already buried us, Ethan. For what? A name in the papers. A wife who won't make you whisper in cellars. His face crumpled, eyes pleading. I did it for us, to protect what we have. But the us rang hollow, eroded by months of ice. We argued through the night in his suite, words flying like shrapnel, my accusations of betrayal, his defenses of necessity. Society don't bend for men like us, Javier. You think I don't ache for it? But one scandal, and we're back in the dirt, or worse. Tears carved tracks down his face, mirroring mine. I love you. God help me, I do. But love ain't enough when the wolves are circling. Dawn found us exhausted, collapsed on the rumpled bed, his arms around me in a ghost of old comforts. Come back with me, he murmured. We'll find a way. But the damage festered. Returning to the bungalow felt like stepping into a mausoleum, our shared spaces echoing with unspoken fractures. Lydia's shadow lingered, letters arriving scented with jasmine, which Ethan burned without a word, but the trust was ash. I threw myself into the garden, planting roses that bloomed defiant red, symbols of a love that refused to wither quietly. He tried, in fits, Candlelit dinners where wife slipped out tentative and sweet, walks under starlit skies where his hand sought mine. Yet the cold lingered, a frost between us that no Texas sun could thaw. Summer brought the inevitable storm, not of dust, but of human reckoning. A rival driller, jealous of Ethan's strikes, unearthed old rumors from our Dust Bowl days, feeding them to the local rag with embellishments that painted us as deviants profiting from perversion. The headline screamed from every porch, Oil King's secret shame. Drifter duo or dirty deal? Town turned venomous overnight. Windows soaked with slurs, deliveries halted, Ethan's partners pulling contracts like teeth. He barricaded himself in the study, pacing amid ledgers that mocked his empire's fragility. This is it, Javier, the grinder I warned you about. Despair etched his features, aging him a decade. I stood firm, voice steady. Then fight for us, not the facade, or let it all burn. That night, as rain lashed the roof like accusations, he broke, sobbing into my chest, the man I'd loved resurfacing raw and real. I can't lose you. Not to this. You're my everything, wife, heart, soul. We faced the tempest together, hiring a lawyer from Dallas who specialized in discreet matters, turning whispers to white noise with settlements and stonewalling. The scandal faded like a bad dream, but scorched us clean, stripping illusions. Ethan sold off marginal leases, simplifying to reclaim time for us. Mornings shared over coffee, no longer rushed. Evenings with a guitar, songs now laced with our story scars. Yet healing demanded truth. One harvest moon, as we sat on the porch rebuilt stronger than before, he took my hand, ring glinting silver in the light. I turned cold because I was scared, Javier, scared of losing the dream, forgetting the man who made it real. His eyes, blue as faded denim, held no shadows. But you're my anchor. Always were. I leaned in, forehead to his. And you're my fire. But next time the world howls, we face it as equals. No masks, no ice. In the years that followed, prosperity stabilized, but our love deepened into something unbreakable, a quiet revolution against the plain's vast indifference. We never married in the eyes of the law. That came later, in distant courts. But in the language of survivors, wife became our sacrament, whispered in cellars and sunlit rooms alike. Texas endured its darkest days, but we emerged luminous, proving that true wealth isn't struck from earth, but forged in the unyielding heart. The oil fields pumped on, nodding sentinels to our saga, but the real fortune was the life we reclaimed. Lazy afternoons fishing the Canadian River, where Ethan taught me to cast lines and steal kisses, winters bundled against the chill, sharing stories of what-ifs that always circled back to gratitude. Society's gaze softened with time, rumors yielding to respect for the man who'd tamed the wildcat wells. But we cared little, our worlds circumscribed by each other. One crisp autumn eve, as leaves turned gold under a benevolent sky, Ethan knelt in the garden I'd nurtured, dirt under his nails from helping plant bulbs. Javier Ruiz, my eternal wife, he said, voice thick with emotion, holding out a new band, platinum now, etched with our initials intertwined. Will you stay, through riches and ruin? Tears blurred my vision, but I pulled him up, sealing the vow with a kiss that tasted of earth and forever. Always mi esposo, always. And in that moment, under the watchful stars of our Texas sky, we understood the profound truth. Love, tested in darkness, emerges not just enduring, but transformed. A beacon for the lost, a testament to the human spirit's quiet defiance. For in the grand, unforgiving theater of life, it's not the gold that endures, but the warmth of hands clasped against the storm.